Before slavery became a stain on one nation's past, it was a wound shared by the world. From the ancient civilizations of Egypt and Rome to medieval Europe and beyond, slavery has been a pervasive part of human history. This is not just about America. This is the global history of slavery and the legacy it left behind. Slavery is as old as civilization itself. In ancient Egypt, slaves helped build empires, constructing pyramids and temples. In Greece, slaves worked in households, fields and mines, and even served as teachers. Rome thrived on slave labor, with slaves fighting as gladiators, working in households and being traded in bustling markets. Centuries before European colonization, the Arab slave trade moved millions across the Sahara and Indian Ocean. African empires themselves sometimes captured and sold rivals. Men were taken as labor, women for domestic service or worse. It lasted over 1,000 years, but remains far less discussed. The Arab slave trade, also known as the trans-Saharan slave trade, was a complex and multifaceted system that spanned continents and centuries. Unlike the transatlantic slave trade, which is widely studied and remembered, the Arab slave trade is often overlooked in historical narratives. This trade began as early as the 7th century and continued well into the 20th century, affecting millions of lives and shaping the course of history in profound ways. The trade routes were extensive, stretching from the interior of Africa to the Middle East, North Africa, and even parts of Europe. Key routes included the trans-Saharan route from West Africa to North Africa and the coastal routes along the Indian Ocean. Caravans of camels would traverse the harsh and unforgiving Sahara Desert, carrying not just slaves but also goods like gold, ivory and spices. These caravans were a lifeline for many African empires, providing them with the resources they needed to thrive and expand. African rulers and merchants played a significant role in this trade. They would often capture rival tribes and sell them to Arab traders in exchange for goods and weapons. Notable figures like Mansa Musa of Mali and Idris Aluma of Kanem-Bornu were involved in these exchanges. This created a cycle of violence and exploitation that devastated many communities. The slaves were subjected to grueling conditions, with men typically forced into hard labor in mines, fields and construction projects. Women, on the other hand, were often taken as concubines or domestic servants, facing a life of servitude and abuse. The economic impact of the Arab slave trade was significant for both African and Arab societies. In Africa, it led to the rise and fall of powerful empires, while in the Arab world it fueled economic growth and urban development. The trade not only depopulated vast regions of Africa, but also disrupted social structures and economies. Entire communities were uprooted, and the cultural fabric of many societies was irreparably damaged. Despite its significant impact, the Arab slave trade is rarely discussed in mainstream historical discourse, overshadowed by the more widely known transatlantic slave trade. Understanding the Arab slave trade is crucial for a comprehensive view of history. It sheds light on the complexities of human exploitation and the interconnectedness of different regions and cultures. By acknowledging this dark chapter, we can better appreciate the resilience and strength of those who endured it and work towards a more inclusive and accurate representation of history. Then came the transatlantic trade, one of the largest forced migrations in human history. Between the 1500s and 1800s, more than 12 million Africans were taken, crammed into ships, many never surviving the voyage. Those who did faced life in chains. America, Brazil, the Caribbean. Slavery became an industry. The origins of this tragic chapter in human history can be traced back to the early European explorers who first set foot on the African continent. They were initially interested in the rich resources and the potential for trade. However, as European colonies in the Americas began to grow, so did the demand for labor. The indigenous populations were decimated by disease and conflict, and the colonizers turned their eyes to Africa. Captured Africans were marched to the coast, often over hundreds of miles, shackled and chained. They were held in forts and dungeons, waiting for the ships that would take them across the Atlantic. The conditions in these holding areas were brutal, with many dying before even boarding the ships. Once on board, the captives were packed tightly into the ship's hold, with little room to move or breathe. The journey across the Atlantic, known as the Middle Passage, could take several weeks. The conditions were horrific. Disease, malnutrition and abuse were rampant. Many did not survive the journey, their bodies thrown overboard. For those who did survive, the nightmare was far from over. Upon arrival in the Americas, they were sold at auction, treated as property rather than human beings. Families were torn apart, and individuals were subjected to grueling labour on plantations, in mines and in households. The brutality of their existence was unimaginable, with punishments for disobedience or attempts to escape often being severe and inhumane. The transatlantic slave trade had a profound impact on the African continent as well. Entire communities were disrupted and the social fabric was torn apart. The loss of so many people had long-lasting effects on the development and stability of African societies. The economic benefits for European countries were immense. The wealth generated from the slave trade and the labour of enslaved people fueled the growth of European economies. Ports in cities like Liverpool, Bristol and Nantes thrived, and industries such as sugar, tobacco and cotton became cornerstones of European wealth. Personal stories of enslaved individuals like Oluda Ikiano and Harriet Jacobs provide a harrowing glimpse into the human cost of the trade. Their narratives reveal the unimaginable suffering endured and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of such adversity. Despite the abolition of the slave trade in the 19th century, the legacy of this dark period in history continues to be felt today. The descendants of those who were enslaved still grapple with the repercussions of their ancestors' forced migration and the systemic inequalities that have persisted over generations. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade is crucial in acknowledging the resilience and strength of those who endured such unimaginable hardships, and in recognizing the ongoing struggle for justice and equality. Slavery didn't just build farms, it built fortunes for Europe, for the Americas, even for industries that claimed no part in it. The cotton grown by enslaved hands fed the mills of England. The sugar sweetened the coffee of the world. Slavery was an economy. But the impact of slavery went far beyond the fields and plantations. It was a complex web that connected continents and fueled the growth of global trade. The raw materials produced by enslaved labour were shipped across oceans, creating wealth for merchants, shipbuilders and financiers. The ports of Liverpool, Bristol and Nantes thrived on the back of this trade, becoming bustling hubs of economic activity. In the Americas, the profits from slavery funded the construction of grand estates, universities and public buildings. The wealth generated by the exploitation of enslaved people was reinvested into the economy, spurring industrialization and innovation. The railroads that crisscrossed the United States, the factories that dotted the landscape, and the banks that financed new ventures all had ties to the institution of slavery. Even industries that seemed far removed from the brutality of the plantations were complicit. The insurance companies that underwrote slave ships, like Lloyd's of London, the textile mills that processed cotton, such as those in Manchester, and the distilleries that produced rum from sugar, like those in the Caribbean, all profited from the labour of enslaved people. The reach of slavery extended into every corner of the economy, creating a legacy of wealth and inequality that persists to this day. The human cost of this economic system was immense. Millions of men, women and children were torn from their homes, subjected to unimaginable cruelty, and forced to labour under brutal conditions. Their suffering and resistance are a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and a reminder of the profound injustices that underpinned the global economy. Slavery was not just a chapter in history, it was a driving force behind the development of the modern world. Its legacy is woven into the fabric of our societies, and its impact continues to be felt in the economic disparities and social injustices that persist today. But people fought back. Some revolted, like the Haitian slaves who overthrew their French masters and founded the first free black republic. Others, like Nat Turner, led revolts in the United States. Abolitionist movements, with figures like Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, played crucial roles. In Jamaica, maroon communities formed independent settlements. Every chain broken began with one act of defiance. Change came slowly. through war, politics and sacrifice. The UK banned the slave trade in 1807, led by figures like William Wilberforce. In America, the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863 and the 13th Amendment in 1865, championed by Abraham Lincoln, abolished slavery. Globally, these changes inspired movements across continents, but laws didn't erase the pain. They only began to close the wound. After slavery ended, came sharecropping, segregation, colonialism, and the silent weight of injustice. Slavery's end did not mean freedom for all, it meant the fight had changed shape. Former slaves and their descendants faced systemic barriers, economic exploitation, and social marginalization. The legacy of slavery continued to impact their lives, creating cycles of poverty and inequality that persist to this day. Today, slavery still exists. Over 40 million people in forced labor, trafficking or exploitation. From factories to conflict zones, chains have evolved, but not disappeared. In Southeast Asia, children are forced to work in garment factories. In Europe, women are trafficked for sexual exploitation. Organizations worldwide are fighting back, raising awareness and rescuing victims. The battle continues, but hope remains. This is not a video about guilt, it's a reminder that freedom is never free, and silence can be deadly. We can't change the past, but we can learn from it. Educate yourself. Support anti-slavery organizations. Together, we can build a better future. Throughout history, slavery has been intertwined with various cultures and religions. In ancient civilizations like Greece and Rome, slavery was a common practice and was often justified by the prevailing social and economic norms of the time. In many religious texts, including the Bible and the Quran, references to slavery can be found. These texts have been interpreted in various ways, sometimes used to justify slavery and at other times to advocate for more humane treatment of slaves. In Hinduism, the caste system created a form of social hierarchy that, while not the same as slavery, imposed severe restrictions on lower castes, often resulting in conditions similar to servitude. However, over time, interpretations have evolved. Many modern religious leaders and scholars condemn slavery, emphasizing the values of equality, freedom, and human dignity. Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and other major religions now largely promote the abolition of slavery and the protection of human rights. Understanding these cultural and religious perspectives helps us see the complexities of slavery's history and underscores the importance of evolving our moral and ethical standards. By learning from the past, we can better navigate the present and future, ensuring that the values of freedom and equality are upheld for all. To truly understand the impact of slavery, we must look beyond the statistics and historical events to the personal stories of those who endured its horrors. Let's listen to some of these voices from the past. One such story is that of Olaudah Equiano, an African man who was kidnapped and sold into slavery as a child. In his autobiography, he recounts the harrowing journey across the Atlantic, the brutal conditions on the slave ships, and the inhumane treatment he faced on the plantations. Yet, despite the unimaginable suffering, Equiano's resilience and determination shine through as he eventually gains his freedom and becomes a prominent abolitionist. Another poignant narrative is that of Harriet Jacobs, an African-American woman who escaped from slavery and wrote under the pseudonym Linda Brent. Her memoir, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, reveals the unique struggles faced by enslaved women, including sexual exploitation and the constant threat of being separated from their children. Jacobs's story is one of both despair and hope as she fights for her freedom and the safety of her family. Frederick Douglass, born into slavery in Maryland, became one of the most influential voices in the abolitionist movement. In his autobiography, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, he details his journey from a life of bondage to becoming a free man and a powerful orator. Douglass's eloquence and passion continue to inspire generations in the fight for justice and equality. These personal accounts remind us that behind every statistic was a human being with dreams, fears, and aspirations. By honoring their stories, We not only acknowledge their suffering, but also celebrate their courage and resilience. Let their voices echo through time, reminding us of the importance of empathy, justice, and the enduring human spirit. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. Let's continue to learn, grow, and work towards a world where freedom and dignity are the rights of all. As we reflect on the personal stories of enslaved individuals, it's crucial to recognize the ongoing efforts to combat modern-day slavery. Around the world, numerous organizations, laws, and grassroots movements are dedicated to eradicating this abhorrent practice. International laws play a pivotal role in the fight against slavery. The United Nations Protocol to Prevent, Suppress and Punish Trafficking in Persons, especially women and children, is a key instrument that aims to protect victims and prosecute traffickers. Similarly, the International Labour Organization's Forced Labour Convention sets standards to eliminate forced labour globally. Organizations like Anti-Slavery International, the world's oldest human rights organization, continue to lead the charge. They work tirelessly to support victims, raise awareness, and advocate for stronger laws and enforcement. Their campaigns have led to significant changes, but the battle is far from over. Grassroots movements are equally vital in this fight. Local communities often band together to protect vulnerable populations and demand justice. For example, in India, the organization Bachpan Bachao Andolan has rescued thousands of children from bonded labor and trafficking, providing them with education and a chance at a better future. Technology is also becoming a powerful tool in combating slavery. Innovative apps and platforms now enable citizens to report suspected trafficking and provide authorities with crucial information. These digital solutions are bridging gaps and bringing us closer to a world free from slavery. While significant progress has been made, there is still much work to be done. It's up to each of us to stay informed, support anti-slavery initiatives, and advocate for the rights of all individuals. By working together, we can create a future where slavery is nothing more than a dark chapter in history. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. Let's continue to learn, grow, and work towards a world where freedom and dignity are the rights of all. Gap-1.02s. While we've explored the historical and human impacts of slavery, it's important to understand its enduring economic legacy. The repercussions of centuries of forced labor are still felt in modern economies around the world. Slavery laid the foundations for many of today's wealthiest nations. The massive profits generated by slave labor, particularly in agriculture and industry, fueled economic growth and development. This wealth was often concentrated in the hands of a few, creating deep economic divides that persist to this day. In the United States, for example, the legacy of slavery is deeply intertwined with racial economic disparities. African Americans who were subjected to slavery for centuries continue to face significant economic challenges. The racial wealth gap remains stark, with African American households holding a fraction of the wealth of white households. This disparity is not limited to the United States. Former colonial powers that benefited from the slave trade, such as the United Kingdom, France and Spain, also experience economic inequalities rooted in their histories of exploitation. The wealth accumulated from slavery allowed these nations to build powerful economies, while the regions and peoples they exploited were left impoverished and underdeveloped. Reparations and economic justice are critical conversations in addressing these historical wrongs. Some nations and institutions have begun to acknowledge their roles in slavery and are exploring ways to make amends. This includes financial reparations, educational programs, and initiatives aimed at closing the economic gaps created by centuries of exploitation. The economic impact of slavery is a complex and multifaceted issue, but understanding it is crucial for creating a more equitable future. By recognizing the long-lasting effects of this dark chapter in history, we can work towards policies and practices that promote economic justice and equality for all. As we continue to learn from the past, let's commit to building a future where the economic benefits of freedom and opportunity are shared by everyone. Gap-1.02as. Slavery's impact extends far beyond the economic and social realms. It has deeply influenced culture, art and literature across the globe. From the haunting spirituals sung by enslaved people to the powerful narratives in literature, the legacy of slavery is woven into the fabric of our cultural history. In the realm of art, countless works have been inspired by the experiences of enslaved individuals. Artists like Jacob Lawrence and Cara Walker have used their talents to depict the brutal realities of slavery, as well as the resilience and strength of those who endured it. Their works serve as powerful reminders of the past and provoke important conversations about race and history. Literature, too, has been profoundly shaped by the legacy of slavery. Classic works such as Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin and Solomon Northup's 12 Years a Slave provided early, vivid accounts of the horrors of slavery. Contemporary authors like Toni Morrison and Colson Whitehead continue to explore these themes, offering new perspectives and ensuring that the stories of the enslaved are not forgotten. Popular culture has also been influenced by the history of slavery. Films like 12 Years a Slave and Django Unchained have brought the brutal realities of slavery to mainstream audiences, sparking discussions and raising awareness. Music genres such as blues, jazz and hip-hop have roots in the African-American experience, with many songs reflecting the pain, struggle and triumph associated with the legacy of slavery. Moreover, cultural traditions and practices preserved by enslaved Africans have enriched societies around the world. From cuisine to dance, these contributions have become integral parts of various cultural identities, showcasing the resilience and creativity of those who were enslaved. Understanding the cultural impact of slavery helps us appreciate the depth and complexity of its legacy. It's a testament to the human spirit's ability to create, endure, and transform even in the face of unimaginable hardship. As we reflect on these cultural contributions, let's honor the memory of those who suffered and celebrate the rich cultural heritage they have left behind. Through art, literature, and popular culture, we continue to learn, grow, and build a more inclusive and understanding world. Like if you learned something, subscribe to see new content, share to support the channel. Knowledge is power.